Good morning, all.
Morning.
Morning, Scott.
Good morning, everyone. Morning, Scott.
Morning.
Sweet. Do you have the packet already downloaded on your computer? Okay, so are you good if we start? Yeah, definitely. Okay, I'm downloading. I'm bringing it up. Yeah, start. Okay, great. Okay. Chair Williams, we are good to go whenever you are.
Excellent. Well, we will get started then. Before I call our meeting to order, I just want to remind everybody that the Board of Directors may vote to hold an executive session for the purpose of obtaining legal advice from Mountain Lions attorney on any matter listed on the agenda pursuant to Arizona Revised Statute. Executive session may be held at any time during the meeting. Executive sessions are not open to the public pursuant to the Arizona open meeting laws. I'd like to call our meeting to order. March 22nd, Wednesday, at around 10 a.m. And roll call, please.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the board. City of Flagstaff, Lori Matthews. Director Matthews, are you with us? We saw her join, but I'll come back. Coconino County.
She's waving at you, Rhonda.
Oh, she is. Okay. It's not showing, so.
If you change, yeah, so if you change the who you see to only people with videos, the dots. So, oh, there should, I have one that said hide non-video, but anyways. So for everyone online, just be aware, we can only see about 4 videos at any given time. So we may not see you if you're just physically motioning, but thank you for calling our attention to Lori's wave. We got it recorded for roll call.
I do
Sorry
think there's something wrong on Lori's end because I saw her come off mute. So.
Okay,
Oh,
thank you for that.
okay. So we have Director Matthews with us. Coconino County, Geronimo Vasquez.
Good morning, everyone present.
Good morning. City of Flagstaff, Miranda Sweet. Present. NAU, Josh Mayer.
Here.
CCC, Tony Williams.
Here, good morning.
Good morning. We do have an alternate member, Director Judy Begay with us.
Did you get an email for her to get
Judy.
online access?
We have our attorney, Scott Holcomb.
Good morning.
Good morning. And we have a guest, Robert Weber from the city of Sedona.
Present.
Great. We have members of staff here in the Vera Room at Mountain Lion and on Zoom. Thank you. I'll turn it back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Rhonda. Next on our agenda, safety minutes. Sam Short, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Today's safety minute is on flood safety. So floods, big or small, can have devastating effects on you and your family. You can take steps to reduce the dangers of flooding by following a few simple steps, like contacting the local emergency management department to find out if your home is located in a flash flood prone area or landslide prone area. Make a communication and disaster plan with your family. Be proactive and get prepared. not just for flooding, but any emergency. Do not drive, walk, or swim in flooded areas. Floodwater can pose a drowning risk for everyone, regardless of their ability to swim. Swiftly moving shallow water can be deadly, and even in shallow standing water can be dangerous for small children. A vehicle will not protect you from floodwaters. Vehicles are often swept away in floodwaters that were not that deep. Pay attention to local government emergency announcement services and the National Weather Service for any warnings that could pertain to you. Always follow the warnings issued by these agencies. Become familiar with the Ready, Set, Go alert system, which is local, and what each step means for you. If evacuated from your home, do not return until directed to do so by your local emergency services. Stay out of floodwaters. You can never know what is in the water at any given time. Some examples would be downed power lines, human or livestock waste, glass, metal, hazardous waste, or many other contaminants. By following these tips and getting prepared, you can greatly increase your chances of not being harmed by floodwaters. For more information, go to cdc.gov/floods. Thank you and welcome to the March board meeting.
Thank you, Sam. Your safety minute is very timely, as I know many of us are concerned about flooding right now.
Thank you.
Moving on in our agenda this morning, call to the public. Rhonda, do we have anyone from the public that has joined us?
We do not.
All right, we will then move forward with approval of our minutes for the February meeting, February 15th, 2023. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion among the board members? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the motion passes. This morning, on our next agenda item is a Sedona Transit presentation that Robert Weber is going to present for us to the board from the city of Sedona. Robert, welcome this morning. We appreciate you being here and sharing with us information about the transit program in Sedona. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, board members, for having me. I'm going to have to share my screen, and Zoom's telling me that I can't do that at this time because only one person can share. So we'll have to stop that other share, and then I can bring up my PowerPoint. Perfect. Just a second here to get organized. It's funny, just before this call, we suspended service to Cathedral Rock due to flooding. So I was taking notes on Sam's safety minutes. Okay. Okay, did that come up for everybody?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so a little bit of history. I've just got a little bit of time with you all this morning, so I'll try to move pretty quickly here. The transit plan in Sedona is really only one of like 13 different strategies that are being employed under the moniker of Sedona in Motion. This is working on streets, roads, shared use paths, walkways, crosswalks, but also public transit is in there as well, including parking strategies. So really, the public transit program in Sedona is a subset under our transportation master plan. Again, we branded it Sedona in Motion. So there we go. So I'm under sim projects called Sedona in Motion, 7, 8, and 9, which basically resulted in a 2.5-year study where we engaged broad and rigorous public involvement, which at the end of that study documented about 65% of our residents were finally in favor of public transit. It's interesting to note that this study of January 2020, in my research, was one of 9 studies that touched on public transit dating back to 1991. So we're finally actually moving forward with transit in Sedona after so many years. So in essence, the Sedona area transit implementation plan, it's a 10-year plan with 4 phases. I won't go into the detail. Basically talking about obviously infrastructure, to which we do not have, vehicle procurement, route planning, et cetera. And it culminates into 4 trunk routes or fixed route services with a paratransit complementary service, but also trailhead shuttles. So I was hired in 2021, January of 2021, to basically come to Sedona and help them implement this plan. Prior to arriving in Sedona, I was with Monterey Salinas Transit for 20 years, retired as their chief operating officer actually it was early January, and then started here at the city later that month. So yeah, MST, a little bit about Monterey Salinas Transit, transported about 5 to 6 million people a year pre-COVID. It is a large property. We served about 1/5 the California coast from Paso Robles to San Jose. So the plan was completed. It was accepted and adopted by the city council. The consultants packed their bags, left town, and all was wonderful, except the consultants could not have anticipated that a worldwide pandemic would result in a surge of visitation to public lands of about 35% throughout our nation, and Sedona was no exception. These were taken during COVID, at the height of COVID, at some of our trailheads here that are within the city limits. In addition to these parking issues you're seeing, this resulted in pedestrians being placed onto roadways that simply weren't designed for them. So we had pedestrian safety issues, we had garbage, we had residents that couldn't access their homes. We had obviously environmental impacts, all of those things. So like I said, I started in January 2021. And I think I was on the job about a week or two, and the city manager said, what's the possibility of accelerating the trailhead shuttle program to have it operational by the following spring? I said, well, let's give it a shot. So I jumped in, hit the ground running, and started working on that project, which resulted in March of last year. In fact, at the end of the service day today will be 1 year that our trailhead shuttles were launched. And it is important to know that these shuttles weren't even contemplated till like 5 years from now in the original plan. So we did launch, like I said, March last year, March 24th. We focused on 5 of our most heavily impacted trailheads within the city limits. And deployed the shuttles. We contracted out with MV Transportation to operate the shuttles, brought in the ITS portion with Transloc, and we were off to the races. So flash forward a year, these are 4 little shuttles, medium duty coaches. We only operate them 4 days a week, most of the year, Thursday through Sunday. And as of the 14th, we're at over 280,000 boardings. We'll probably close around 290 or 300,000 for our first year. That's about 219 days of operation, at least as of the 14th. So that's where we are. The productivity on these lines are averaging about 27 passengers per hour. During our spring break season, of course, this hasn't been much of a spring. We do average about 35 to 37 passengers per hour on these small routes. So that is in a nutshell where we are today. We are operating daily through spring break, and we'll return to our Thursday through Sunday schedule on April 17th. Up next, and this has been significantly delayed, is our microtransit demand response service, which I was hoping to launch last March, but with vehicle manufacturing delays, it was just not going to happen. I'm still delayed waiting on vehicles. We have them ordered again. Our first order, the manufacturer stopped making them and put us back in the market. So I do have ordered 5 New England Wheels front runners, which we're hoping to take delivery of in September for our microtransit service, which we will brand the Sedona Shuttle Connect. Basically, it's it's a pre-designated zone. Picks and drops anywhere within that zone. Our goal is to provide a 15-minute wait time from the time the vehicle's requested. So we're going to start with 4 vehicles serving Sedona. This service also connects to the Trailhead Shuttle park and rides, where our hope is that we could get our visitors. We're up to like 3.7 million visitors a year coming through Sedona. We're hoping to get our visitors to keep their cars at their hotels, use the shared ride service to connect into Uptown, Tlaquepaque, Hillside, and most importantly, connect to our new Trailhead Shuttle service. I know this board's familiar with microtransit because you've recently deployed one. It's basically the same. It's app enabled. They can call a live reservationist or book the trip on a website. So hopefully, light a candle. We're hoping that we can get this deployed in the fall of 2023. And that is where I am at. I'm going to end there and see if I have any questions. We are working on long-range transit planning as well. I didn't want to spend too much time on that, given our time limitations today, but we are entering the engineering and design phase of our regional maintenance and operations facility that will be located out at our wastewater treatment plant. We are looking at initial concept designs of a transit hub located within central Sedona to support fixed route services out to the village of Oak Creek, through the Oak Creek Canyon, and hopefully points beyond. So that's what I have for you today, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Weber, thank you for sharing this information with us this morning. Really do appreciate it. I know that about 6 months ago or so, former Chair Shimoni was interested and had been working to try to get you into our agenda and have you share the work that you're doing down in Sedona. I think specifically, if I recall, a lot of his interest was around the service to the trailheads that you referenced in your presentation. And I'm sharing this because other board members may have forgotten about what Chair Shimoni was interested in the last 6 months. Are there any other questions for Robert this morning?
I have one, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Robert, for being here. Actually, my question is related to the Trailhead Shuttle. So how do you market that to visitors? Obviously, a lot of the people who are using the trailheads obviously are from out of town and wouldn't necessarily readily know about that.
Right.
So could you talk a little bit about how you let people know?
Sure. we gave that a lot of thought because we're going to be reaching out. Well, Sedona is now an international destination, so we had to think about that. So we engaged the Chamber of Commerce. In fact, they're under contract with the city to manage the entire marketing effort for the shuttle service. So they're using all of their social media outlets. They're using publications that go out nationwide, if not internationally. We're working very closely with our lodging council so that as people arrive, the concierge are saying, look, keep your car, park your car up at the park and ride. Here's the information, that type of thing. So we're exploring all of those type of avenues. We now have, we're working on getting social media influencers to actually be out on the bus and filming and then use that information to push that out, not only through the chamber's channels, but also through the city's channels. So we're looking for any new ideas. So if anybody has any, feel free to contact me and we'll pursue them. So great question. Thanks.
I do not have any ideas, but appreciate the all
Yeah.
encompassing approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Mayer, for those questions. Good ones. Director Matthews, looks like your hand is up.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yay. I just have two questions. Do the riders on the bus to the trailheads, do they still have to purchase a permit to hike the trails? And then also I was curious on if the buses that you're ordering, if they are hybrid or electric.
Okay, on the first question, no, they do not have to purchase a Red Rock Pass. I failed to mention in my initial presentation, the shuttles are free and open to the general public, and the parking at the parking rides are free. So we're trying to provide incentive for people to use these services. I knew early on, and I recommended strongly while we were planning this service, that if we keep those parking lots open at those trailheads, the service is not going to succeed. So working with the Forest Service, they finally agreed, after doing environmental studies, et cetera, to close the actual parking at the trailheads while the shuttles are operating, which has really helped our ridership and productivity. On the second question, with these New England wheels, those are going to be gas powered. We simply do not have the infrastructure at this time to support battery electric. We don't even have a maintenance facility. We're shipping everything for maintenance to Camp Verde, and in some cases as far as Phoenix for heavy maintenance. We don't have trained technicians. We don't have any of that. However, and it was quite a lively discussion with the city council on this, because we do have a very aggressive sustainability plan. I am all for battery electric. I have deployed battery electric in my previous career. But I know enough about it that if we don't have the infrastructure to support it, not only with the charging infrastructure, but with factory certified technicians to support that, we're going to be looking at a lot of deadline vehicles. So we're starting with gas. These have about a 5-year life, and that will give us time to develop that infrastructure, which would include that maintenance and operations facility that I mentioned earlier. So.
Any other questions from the board? Robert, thank you so much for your time today. We really do appreciate what you've shared and look to continue to partner and connect with you as time progresses. Heather was sharing with me earlier some of the innovations that you've implemented down there, and very impressed with what's going on in Sedona. So congratulations to your efforts in that area.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I will be attending your ribbon cutting for your e-bus tomorrow, so I hope to see some of you there. I just can't get there through 89A, but I'll find a way. So, yeah. Okay.
That's great. Well, you're welcome to stay in our meeting today if you'd like. but I know you may be busy as well, so. But
Yeah, I'm
thank
going to
you.
go ahead. I'll go ahead and jump off. And again, thank you, Mr. Chair and board, for having me. So.
Thank you. All right, moving along in our agenda this morning, item number 7. These are items, the next following items are for discussion and action. And an update on the user fee schedule. I believe Heather is going to lead us in this morning. Heather.
I am. So good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. As we look to open our new building about 18 months from now, one of the things we've had to assure FTA is that we will be responsible for the funding that they are allowing us to use, that are transit specific funding to build that facility, that we will be respectful of where that funding came from and maintain it as a transit resource. And as a result, we will need to ensure when we allow other uses of that facility and also with our CDL course, that we recover the federal investment in a reasonable manner, and also assure FTA that we are not trying to compete with any spaces in the open market by undercutting maybe those private businesses. So accordingly, we've updated our user fees to add these 3 lines that really illustrate the 3 areas where we see that we can share our resources in the community, but recover the really O&M related cost of sharing that resource and put that funding back into transit and transit services. So this was a requirement of us having what FTA calls incidental uses of these federally invested facilities. And so we're asking the board today to go ahead and as a measure of planning for and assuring FTA as we develop those construction agreements that we will, yes, we do have intended incidental use, but we will recover the O&M and put it back into the transit programs. So we're asking you to adopt the updated user fees specifically for these items. There is one footnote that the use of the CDL course, that incidental fee does not apply specifically to NAU shuttle services because NAU shuttle services is contributing to the project and therefore are a shared owner in the actual facility itself. But this could apply to, say, NAU police if they wanted to use it for defensive driving or police training as just one brief example. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any questions from the board.
Thank you, Heather. Board members, any follow-up questions to Heather? Heather, I don't have any questions for you this morning on this. It doesn't sound like other directors do either.
Okay.
So, board members do have a motion to approve an update to the adopted user fee schedule.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Director Matthews. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is the fiscal year 2024 operating budgets, and Josh Stone will be leading our conversation on this today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. This is the second in the sort of first half of the year series of budget reviews for the fiscal year 2024 budget that we will be seeking approval of in June. So we can move to the next slide. We are looking to increase the overall operating budget 5.3% for the fiscal year 2024. This 5% does include the workforce budget items presented in the February meeting. The remainder of the increase is really just contained to a handful of categories. which we will look at the next slide, which we can move to. So this chart is a comparison of this current fiscal year 2023 to the proposed 2024. The blue you can see is salaries and benefits, which we covered last month. The orange is those categories which we're seeing an increase. So these are all the items. They're items that have been steadily increasing each of the last several years. These also tend to be categories that we can sort of make an attempt at finding a best value in purchasing, but ultimately are kind of subject to market conditions. We don't have a huge amount of control as much as we would prefer to control them. So parts and supplies is the first one. That's necessary to keep the vehicles in a state of good repair so we can continue our service. I think we've all experienced inflation of the cost of goods over the last year or two. Vehicle parts are a particularly hard hit area, especially where there might be only one or two sources for a specific bus component. And a certain amount of this increase we can also attribute to the overall age of our vehicle fleet and some more intensive maintenance needs as the mileage ticks upwards for those. Next up is insurance. Our insurance, which is all insurance, it includes our auto insurance and general liability, is anticipated to be about a 30% increase. We do look each year to see what options are available to us to reduce cost. There's usually somewhat limited options for public agencies, the public agency insurance market. And those options kind of even further narrow when you get to just the very narrow public transit space. And depending on the city claims sometimes run high for some agencies. We're fortunate we don't have a significant issue with claims, but those who do tend to dictate the premiums for the entire market. So there's not a lot of control we have over that part of the increase. The last major item contributing to our budget increase is facilities expenses, which is about 14%. We contract out janitorial services, and our contract does include required labor increases due to the city's increased minimum wage. So that's factored into there. And then also facility supplies are, excuse me, are similar to vehicle parts and supplies, and just generally seeing an overall inflation of prices. And then the rest of the operating budget outside of salaries and benefits, and then these couple of categories listed today, is staying flat at about 2.4 million. We kind of have shuffled around any savings we could identify in some line items to cover small increases in other items, but overall the rest of the total is unchanged. You can move to the next slide, please. All right, so just some items to note for the 2024 budget. We've taken delivery of one electric bus, which we're of course happy to see many of you at the public launch event for that tomorrow. We also have one additional electric bus on order, which should be delivered soon-ish, maybe a couple of months. These new buses will be trading the electric charging cost instead of purchasing diesel fuel. Fuel increases have not risen quite as dramatically lately as in 2022. So we hope that much of the shift to electric for these buses will simply be an offset of fuel savings. And then we're working to bring some new Vanpool participants on board. I think there might actually be a new been in operation recently. The local funding for this program is from Coconino County, and our plan is mostly just to reallocate existing budget capacity within the county's allocated program funds with no increase. And then we have some software costs that are shifting. They've had their initial capital and implementation phase and getting up and running, and we're using them daily now. So that's moving to recurring operating expense. We are receiving some software products at no cost through a state grant program. And hopefully that'll continue and grow over time. So software costs across all purposes are not increasing. So that's helpful to us. And then finally, we took a look at basically all recruitment and employee appreciation lines and made some reallocations to sort of target the most effective use of those funds. Some of those programs are more widely used than others. But there's also no change to the total of all these lines. So with that, that's all I have for you today on day-to-day operating budget for fiscal year 2024. And I can answer any questions you might have.
Josh, thank you very much. I really appreciate you walking us through this. I was looking at your first slide, and the yellow section in there. I don't know about anybody else on the board, but I certainly over the last week during my spring break and visiting with family in Tucson, really felt the cost of inflation in our activities, and so and recent work I did on my own vehicle, really expensive. So I cannot imagine what those costs really are affecting Mountain Lion when it comes to maintenance of our fleet of buses. So I really appreciate you sharing that information with us today. Other members of the other directors of the board, do you have any questions for Josh this morning? Hearing none, Josh, I think we will revisit this next month on the agenda, I believe. But I thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 9, the fiscal year 2023 mid-year performance report. I believe Busy is going to lead us in this conversation this morning. Busy.
Yes, thank you, Chair Williams, directors. I am here today to talk about strategic performance. Mountain Lion is a data-rich organization, and we strive to use data to make decisions. Today, I'm going to focus on performance metrics the board adopted in 2015. And these are presented every 6 months, so they should look a little familiar. While current metrics share the outcome of the service we provide, it really doesn't convey the impacts Mountain Lion Services has on the Flagstaff community. And so staff began a strategic performance project to identify and use meaningful metrics that broaden our definition of success and achieve the purposes listed here. So as you're listening to my presentation today, please consider what is meaningful to you and share any reflections. Staff will engage on this topic again after. Okay, so first item, fixed route bus. So I'm going to go through mode by mode. So the first one is bus, and these are the large buses that you see on the road. So please note that the actual, so in the 2 highlighted items in the table, actual only represents the first half of the fiscal year, whereas the rest of them are annual totals. I thought this was more representative. Instead of projecting the remainder of the year, have actual. So you can see as we get down to some of the metrics past the first line, their actual comparison. So instead of $140 cost per service hour, we're actually at $146. So you can see, and that's only up to December. I'm very excited. So as of January 16th, Mountain Lion did resume complete service. So all of our routes have their full frequency back in service, all buses on. We're really excited about that, and we are immediately seeing that. You're not seeing it in the data here, because it's January and February and March, but we're already seeing huge increases year over year with that reinstated frequency and service. And so as a reminder, we've had some form of reduced service since October 2021. So it's a very big deal until January of 2023. So just as a highlight, February, we were already 31% over last year. And March, as of a couple days ago, we have reached last year's March ridership, and we're on track to be about 60% year over year for this month. So you can definitely see again, like ridership is reflecting the service we provide. So we increase our frequency, we're increasing our ridership automatically. A couple other items I'd like to note, ridership recovery for Route 10 compared to the rest of the system. Over time, they've, one's been a little higher than the other, but they're both about at 38% down from normal pre-COVID. But with the full service, I do anticipate that showing up by 30%, showing up to 30% down from normal by the end of this fiscal year. And we are on track to be pre-COVID ridership by 2025. We've been saying that for a few years, and we're actually seeing that as we get closer, which I'm really excited about. And here I have some comparable peers. These were identified through the FlagStaff in Motion plan. And these have changed slightly since the peers identified in 2015. And the one that we did remain on our peer agency recommendations was Missoula, Montana. So they're a little different between 2015 and what we have recommended today. I want to mention that. And so FlagStaff is the item in blue, and you can kind of see where we're at throughout these various metrics. So boardings, it's kind of interesting. So you can see FlagStaff boardings, it looks so small. Tucson's just crushing it. However, Tucson's huge. And so once we do boardings per capita, that bottom left item, we're actually doing better per capita than our peer agencies, which is exciting. I'd also like to mention all of the peer data here is from 2020. So that year was half impacted by COVID. And so everybody's data is half impacted by COVID, half normal. So kind of interesting. So these are, we're seeing the impacts of COVID on these metrics. However, compared to normal pre-COVID data, these ratios comparisons still ring true. Like FlagStaff is still crushing boardings per capita in pre-COVID times and in COVID times. Just want to bring that up. Passengers per hour, another great metric where, we have a lot of people on there. I'd like to point out, Sedona mentioned that they have 27 passengers per hour, and we have 30 passengers per hour. Again, that's COVID impacted passengers per hour. It's kind of interesting. So they're doing very high productivity on their buses. Pretty great to see. Cost per hour, again, seeing how efficient we are with our system compared to the service that we put out there. So you can see we're right in the middle. Some are doing a little better than us. Some are doing a little worse.
Izzy,
Yes.
Missoula is fare free.
Thank you. Yes, great item to note. I had that in my notes. Skip that over. Yeah, great to note. So of these agencies listed here, Missoula is fare free. So you can see kind of on the various metrics, like maybe that helps them, I would think. Cost per hour, maybe that doesn't help them as much. Yeah, not sure. So kind of interesting. Thank you for noting that. And I did want to mention, so this peer data, I'm not going to have it for every mode because Mountain Line and other agencies are required just to submit certain data points to the Federal Transit Administration. These are some of those data points. However, on other modes such as microtransit, it's not really separated out, it gets lumped in. So we can't quite compare everything, or city taxi, county taxi, you can't quite compare everything with our peers. But where we can, I try to include it. Please, if you have questions, please interrupt me. I'm just going to go through every mode and happy to answer any questions as well. So paratransit here. So you can see we definitely peaked in our cost per hour, 2020, 2021. We are seeing that the cost per hour reduction is attributable to the microtransit system commingling. So we use the same vehicle, same driver to provide paratransit service and microtransit service. And so that is a result of our lower cost per hour that we're seeing this year. And, oh, I also want to mention, so Mountain Line partnered with Lyft from August to December to broker paratransit trips. And the passengers had to opt in, so we did have 284 paratransit trips taken on Lyft during that time. We learned a lot about this pilot for future exploration, and it was a service offered by our contractor and would need a procurement to continue. So it just kind of lived its available lifetime, but we were really excited to have the opportunity. So some positive items on that Lyft partnership. The cost per trip was about 25% more than what Mountain Line provides on a comparison. But if we really committed to the program, really promoted ridership, increased some of the other providers, then we do anticipate savings on cost per trip. So just kind of interesting, our pilot didn't quite show that, but we do anticipate it still. The Lyft partnership worked really well for some riders. It offered more flexibility. Riders could book through the app for a trip instead of calling, which is always nice. And it could help in circumstances of staff shortages. So Mountain Line doesn't have enough, but maybe we could broker it out of taxis. Some drawbacks, we did have challenges with quality assurance. Mountain Line has a very high level of quality, and when you broker trips out, we can't control that quality. So that was challenging, as was vehicle availability. As anyone who has ever tried to book a trip in town on taxi or Lyft or et cetera, sometimes there's just not vehicles available. There's just not drivers. We're just at the mercy of available markets here. So if we had more than just Lyft, more providers, that was part of the positive item. So if we had more providers, I think we could see better quality assurance and vehicle availability. And we did notice that there was more dispatch monitoring than anticipated. So just kind of some lessons learned. How do we anticipate this for the future? It was a great partnership. And you can kind of see, yeah, it's like we had a certain percentage of people actually taking those trips, opting in. And here's a peer comparison of paratransit. So again, you can see boardings were really low. Tucson is off the charts. They're 423,000. But then if we do boardings per capita, Tucson's still very high among our peers, but not as high. And kind of interesting cost per hour. So again, this is 2020. This was the peak of our cost per hour, $185, I believe. Yeah. So we brought that down more to 98. So think of where we are in the peers now, kind of more in the middle. Passengers per hour, again, the more passengers we have per hour, the better. It means we're pooling trips, more efficient service. So we're doing really great compared to our peers there. Microtransit. So this was a pilot last year and it became permanent July of 2022. So not all the data is complete in there, it wasn't actually even in service. So you can kind of see where we're at in the pilot in 2022 and then 2023 as a permanent service. We also did the Lyft partnership here. So you can see that the same feedback on the partnership as the paratransit that I went through. And again, I don't have pure information on microtransit. In the future, microtransit and paratransit are both demand response services. So they are going to be lumped together, which is really hard. We like to look at our services separately. So maybe if I can find a way to peer comparison, paratransit specific and microtransit specific, but I think that'll be challenging, which is a bummer. City taxi program. So we have the city taxi program, we have the county taxi program. It's simply where the taxi rides are provided and how they're funded. So city pays for city rides, county pays for county rides. So here we're looking at city. It's a great program. This is really only available for paratransit eligible individuals. It's a same day, 24-hour trips. Again, that same flexibility that the Lyft partnership provided us with. We are able to leverage 50% of funds to double the program budget, which is wonderful. We get grant funds to operate the taxi program. Riders save 80% on their transportation costs. That's wonderful. We subsidize part of their trip. And so we subsidize the trip, but it's still a lower service compared to my paratransit. So $18 here, cost per ride, and $26 for the county service compared to $55 for paratransit. So again, it's a great program. And we can, we can see that city trips are up 23% in the first half of this year. However, county trips are down a little bit, 37%. And this is definitely a lifeline. The county taxi program that we're looking at now is a lifeline for our county residents. It's useful. It's definitely not about increasing ridership, but really for those who need it, it's there. And Vanpool, I will say, Vanpool's crushing it. January is, or even February is off the charts. We had to increase the range, I think up to 1,500 or something. So you're not quite seeing the additional vans that were recently added to the Vanpool program. Those started in January, I believe. And, but otherwise, I mean, Vanpool's doing great. It's a very different system than fixed route and paratransit. Our riders are very much healthcare and Forest Service participants. So they have more of the steady working in the office sort of expectation. So we don't see a lot of fluctuation impacts by COVID. Let's see. Yeah, we just increased from 5 vans to 10 vans in January. So 6 months from now, it's going to look really good. Awesome. Okay, Vanpool, and I am able to provide peer information on Vanpool. So you can see, and not all of our partners provide Vanpool. It's a service that we do. So I think we have 6. So 3 other peers don't provide Vanpool. And again, you can see that our boardings per capita may not be as great as Missoula. They're doing great, but still very awesome. Higher than Tucson, which is interesting for how many people I think are Vanpool to Tucson. I know they have a very robust program. You can see that in the boardings, top left, very robust ridership. Passengers per hour, again, efficiency, that's really great. They probably have a full vans, just like we do, and cost per hour. So it's really exciting to see, you know, some of this compared to our peers. Yes, and so looking forward, again, I'd love to hear from the directors on anything that was meaningful to you in this presentation. And then as we look towards the next presentation on this topic in May, staff will be bringing some various metrics that really broaden our definition of success. So making sure that we're telling the full story of Mountain Line and not just a reaction to the service that we provide. So I do have a couple specific questions for the board. I was wondering if, like, in general, you liked having goals. Go back. So here, there's goals. If you like having goals, if you like having projection of future years, such as there's our projection of future years. So we have 3 years out, 7 years out. That's what we decided in 2015 that we were going to say and share with the board every 6 months. And you want to see this as past, current, and future year. Is there something like the strategic work plan timeline that makes more sense, like a 3 or 5 year time? So I'll stop there and happy to answer any questions you have, but also looking for any feedback that directors have. Great, thank you, Busy. Great presentation. I would just comment on your question. As a member of the board, I appreciate having the projections and being able to compare real data with where we are in relation to the future. I think it's helpful for a board like this to anticipate what that growth or decline might be. Really, I think earlier in your presentation, you were pointing out 2020 data and how COVID impacted those numbers. And I think that's a good example of why having that information helps us as a board with decisions that put the mission of the transit program first and foremost. So I definitely support that. Other directors, do you have other comments to contribute to her question?
Miranda has her hand up. Thanks. I too, I agree. For me, it's nice to have the full picture, especially when making decisions, and we make big decisions on this board. So having current, past, future is helpful. And with board members coming and going sometimes, yes, I think having this information for everybody is helpful, so that whether you're new or seasoned, you're looking at the full picture.
Yeah, thank you, Director Sweet. Other directors,
Chair Williams.
go ahead, Director Mayor.
Thank you. And really, my comment is mostly just to echo the chair and Director Sweet's comments, understanding that, all the decisions we make aren't made in isolation, that there's all these other related and connected aspects of how we decide things. I really do appreciate both the sort of retrospective and then the forecasting of where we may be headed. So very, very helpful. Thank you, Busy.
Thank you.
Directors, any other follow-up questions before we move on?
Yeah, I do. If you could go back to the paratransit, I noticed that there was a big jump from 2019 to 2020, but then it looks like the price per trip, cost per trip kind of went down. So it's curious what was why 2019 to 2020 went up almost $8, but then after that kind of stabilized per trip.
Absolutely. So, COVID, like the fewer trips that we have, our costs really don't, for paratransit, our costs don't align with ridership perfectly. It's very much, if ridership, let's see, I have some stats. So ridership 2020 versus 2019, our ridership dropped 19%, but our operating costs only dropped 4%. And that's exactly what you're seeing here. It's just, our costs don't really shrink because the system is just, you have to provide a lot of infrastructure. The staff has to be in place, even if all those trips get canceled tomorrow. The software is in place, just all of that overhead. Does that help?
It does. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to agree with my colleagues. I appreciate the numbers and being able to see it broken down in this way, because I know we've had that conversation about the paratransit and how that can be a way to possibly fill in areas that we can't get regular bus service to. So I appreciate seeing the numbers and seeing as we do that cost benefit analysis, seeing what makes more sense. So thank you.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Vice Chair Vasquez. Any other questions for Busy, or Busy, do you have any other follow-up comments to the board at this time?
I don't, thank you.
And thank you very much today for walking us through that. And we will move forward with our next agenda item, which is item 10, Downtown Connection Center update. Heather.
So, good morning again. I'm putting on my Kate hat. As you all are probably aware, Kate continues to serve at MetroPlan as the executive director, and so we are limping through things without her. And I am now going to do my best to give you a DCC update as soon as I find the notes. So the Downtown Connection Center is moving right along, and I'm very happy to share with you some updated renderings as well as some facts and updates on this. This presentation is going to focus on phase 1, which is really the building. So you can see the latest rendering of the building on the screen. On the right-hand side, the grass tree-ish looking items are the public artwork that the city of Flagstaff is contributing. And I want to point out that that is a temporary part of phase 1. So where that sits will later be converted into a driveway space for the bus bays, but the artwork that's being placed there is being placed with the intention of moving it to the civic space later. So I just want to recognize that that is one portion of phase 1 that is subject to change. So what is happening right now is we just moved out of the Downtown Connection Center. Our staff have been for the last week removing their personal belongings, their lunch boxes, their cups, their spoons, etc. And our facilities team closed that building up today. And that is because we will start the asbestos abatement, and a fence will go up around that building sometime in the next 7 to 10 days. Monday. I'm getting a head nod from someone. Monday. So we do have this little weird bit of time, for our staff members in transition. So we had to get them out so that we can start the abatement. We have to do the abatement so we can tear the building down. Unfortunately, the trailer that we have being built for our drivers that will have 2 bathrooms instead of 1 bathroom, which is traditionally what you see in temporary construction trailers, it is still about 6 weeks out. So we're not able to place that on property. So the interim solution is that we have brought in, unfortunately, some porta potties, but at least our drivers have a space when they need it. And we've also put a vehicle down there that they can sit in and be warm in and have their lunches in. We're providing coffee and water for them in this transition. So it is 6 to 8 weeks that we'll have this temporary solution in place. Drivers were very forewarned. We're doing everything that we can. We as team members will go down and continue to be very supportive of their concerns. It's just an unfortunate circumstance with building of that trailer and the timeline for moving out. So the community is really going to start to see some activity. We're very excited about that. Demo and the groundbreaking will take place after the asbestos abatement, which we anticipate to be late in April. We're also very cautious about planning any event until we know that maybe, just maybe, winter is over. I will move on to another rendering, looking from a different area. So this is more if you were standing on top of the hub or the jack and looking down at our space and what it looks like, just to give you a different view of that building. The neighboring businesses are all being informed about the timeline that I just shared with you. Construction is about 18 months in total before we be able to move into that and have a certificate of occupancy. I am also very happy to report that the city of Flagstaff just last night took action to amend the IGA that was approved several months ago. That amendment was key because it captured a couple items that FTA asked us to adjust in our lease agreement that allows us to use that lease agreement as the local match. And that was a key part of our project because it meant a reduction in cash necessary to complete this project. So it's a huge step. We're so glad to have the partnership and support of the city of Flagstaff, the council, the staff. But this step will allow us now to move forward with the construction agreement and access to the funds that were awarded to us in 2019. One last look at the building. This is that same angle, but zoomed in just a little bit so that you can kind of get a feel for what it will look like when we are down there. This is what folks will see on Milton. This building will, as a reminder, contain our administrative and planning staff as well as MetroPlan. They are going to be leasing space in this building from us. And of course, upgraded amenities, break facilities, restrooms, the whole gamut for our customers, as well as our drivers at this location. So we're very excited to bring this forward. And I just wanted to provide this quick update to you today. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Heather. That was great. Really nice to see those renderings. And I know there's been a lot of conversation around the artwork and whatnot. I'm glad to know that that will be moved in another location at a later date. That's great. Directors, other questions for Heather this morning? Scott, I see your hand is up. You have a question?
Yeah, no, just if I may, Chairman, if I may make a comment. 2 things I wanted to point out. Again, Heather and her staff have been extremely adept at working with FTA, which has been a real moving target. And we tried to implement that. And that's part of the reason why we had to do the amendment with the city of Flagstaff. But we were finally able to get because of their work, and it was able to get it to the point where we got it down to just a couple of points that we had to modify to satisfy their requirements. And I also wanted to particularly point out to Sterling Solomon, the city attorney for Flagstaff. I worked with him. His cooperation, willingness to try to make this work was key in also in getting that done. I just want to point that out. Heather doesn't tout that as enough, how much work and ingenuity and number of dead chickens we had to sweep over things to get the FTA to pass it, but they did a great job.
Scott, thank you for bringing that up. And absolutely, I know Heather doesn't always toot her horn all the time about the significance of those accomplishments. And I appreciate you reminding the board about that extra effort and the teamwork that goes into making something like this happen. Other members of the board, any other comments? Hearing none. Heather, I think we can move on to our next agenda item, which I believe you are also leading the conversation on. And that is the 2024 tax package process.
Yes, thank you. So I will say, I think you get to look at me and hear my voice for the remainder of this meeting. So I will try and not speak in monotone and bore you all to death. This item is a brief update on our transit tax package process. So now that we have the adopted 5-year plan, we're ready to look at how do we fund it so that we can deliver on that package or that plan for our community. As a reminder, the real focus of frequency is going to be what this community needs to change travel patterns and really change the face of ridership. And I think what Busy shared today is really based on system quo, doing exactly what we're doing today, but we hope implementing the 5-year plan will change how people use transit and really make a difference in our community. And so in order to implement that transit plan, we know that we're going to need an increase in funding. We were clear about that during the process. And so today I just want to talk about what are the next steps there for the transit tax. We plan to form a citizen advisory commission. We're still working on the membership for that. We've sent out inquiries to a number of folks across the community, from members at CCC and NAU to business members. We invited Acona to participate. We've invited the folks who participated in the CAC in support of Flagstaff in Motion to participate. So just trying to reach a real wide audience of folks that would participate, from the funding question itself to the real human services driven transit piece as well. So hopefully we'll have news on who in the coming weeks. Like I said, those responses are still coming back in. To clarify, the committee does not report to the board. It's not a commission of the board of directors. It's a committee that will report to myself and our staff, and we will filter that feedback and bring it to the board and then later to council as part of the recommendation to consider a transit tax question for the public. The reason for that is it allows us to be very flexible and nimble with that committee on decision-making and conversation versus coming back to the board to change direction, et cetera. We've done that for the last couple of tax elections, and it has worked well to have that committee report to the general manager and staff. The goal is to have a recommendation ready to deliver to the city of Flagstaff no later than December of 2023. That is about 6 months in advance of when the city will actually make a decision on whether or not to put it on the ballot. But we feel like it's important for the city to understand the importance of that question being on the 2024 ballot. What is the value of that question? And also afford us the time that we need to be out in the community talking about what the ballot achieves. So we cannot advocate for voter support, but we can certainly educate on what supporting a transit tax increase would provide for our community. It's one of the places that we feel like we didn't do that great in 2018 in making sure people understood what the question was and what it provided. So we want that time in this process. We are currently just finished scope of work for a polling and education consultant. The way we're doing the procurement, someone could respond to both pieces of work, or we could end up with 2 separate contracts. We feel like the polling piece is going to be very important for the CAC so that they can understand the attitudes of the community, the receptiveness of the questions. When is it too much funding? When is the timeline too long? How likely are people to support those kinds of questions? In addition to that, by bringing the education consultants on now, they can help, again, the CAC understand how phrasing of questions, how pursuing this versus that may play in the public, and it creates a cohesive educational effort in our community. So lots of considerations that we'll still wade through with this committee. As you can see on the screen, kind of where we're at, what we plan to do. And I just wanted to provide that in case you have questions or feedback for us before we get too far down this road. That's everything I have, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you, Heather. Any questions from the other directors on the board? Heather, this is an information item right now. In our future meetings, will we have a more in-depth updates? Leading if there is a need for other questions from us?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we will be bringing feedback from the CAC as we develop it for the board to really discuss and give us feedback on. Then we'll take that back to the CAC. Ultimately, all of this will result in a question and an action that we ask for from this board, so that the board actually makes the decision on what is the question that they recommend that the city of Flagstaff ask of the voters.
Great, thank you, Heather. I see Director Mayer, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for this information. I know we're very early on the process, and so forgive me if the question is a little too early yet, but sort of, I know that there's going to be a lot of demands and a lot of requests, that are sort of part of why we're going for the tax question. So related to that, I know that, just given the sort of uptick in the discussion about fare free, will we have enough information to inform what the tax request might be by the time we need to go to the city council?
I'm confident in saying yes, we will. I know that I did send out an email just yesterday from a group that's asking Mountain Line to consider going fare free. It's actually in our work plan to evaluate and consider that. I think that the timing of the pilot as associated with the decision and then determining the actual tax question is going to be tight. I anticipate that we may need to shorten the pilot period or make some assumptions midway through the pilot period in order to form that tax question. It is my ultimate hope that we can come back to you, the board, and say, this is how we're going to replace the fares, and it's not going to be impactful to the transit tax conversation. I'm hoping to be able to say, this, we can cover it in the existing tax, we can cover it with the increase of federal revenues or other sources, and I'm still digging through those, so pardon my vagueness, but my goal is to be able to say fare free is not about new taxes. Fare free is a decision we make within our existing funding structure, and the new taxes are strictly about additional or new services. Does that answer your question?
It does. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question, Director Mayer. Other directors, any more questions or comments for Heather?
I have a question. How is this, it looks like this is gonna go to the voters in 2024. How does this look with other potential bonds that will go to the voters? Like, because I know that when, like for the county, when we consider what we're gonna put up, we look at other different potential bonds that could impact it. How does this look like with the slate of other bills or other bonds, that might be coming out in 2024? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Director Vasquez. I don't have a specific answer, but I can get one. I know that tentatively I have spoken with the city manager as well as the county manager, trying to gauge what other funding questions might be on 2024. And in fact, we made a distinct decision not to go in 2022 because we knew there were so many other funding questions on that ballot. I believe the city confirmed that they may be considering a bond, and I'm sorry, I don't remember which one it was. But I believe the county indicated they would not be, but I will try and get a more firm answer, Director Vasquez, and include that in my next update. That is something we stay very aware of. We participate in the Alliance Group, which was strictly formed to ensure that the government partners in the Flagstaff area are having these conversations, and so that ballots are very strategic about how many times we're asking funding questions and in any given year and by whom.
Great, thank you. I know it's a hard question to answer right on the spot with no preparation, but I just want us to have that conversation and think about that, knowing that some of these other agencies are also planning on putting out some bonds. And so just want to make sure we have the strongest bond to put out to the community when we're ready to do so. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Vasquez. Great question. Absolutely. An item, CCC just went through a process and it was important. Plus being on a ballot, there's cost associated with that work and outreach, and it you want to make sure you're expending resources in a way that's going to be most fruitful. So appreciate that question. Before we move on, one last call for any other directors that want to pose a question. Hearing none, I think Heather will move on to item number 12, which is the 2023 employee satisfaction results.
All right. And I believe, Mr. Chair, if I could check in, this is the last discussion action item.
That is correct on the agenda that I have.
All right, I'm just trying to be mindful of time here and allow us enough time for current events. So how fast should I talk? So the employee satisfaction survey results, I'm pleased to present to you today. This is the first survey that we have conducted since 2019. We attempted to do a survey, I believe, in early 2020 and had several failed attempts, meaning we couldn't get staff to engage and take the survey. And so we ceased all efforts. And we went to the drawing board and said, are we even asking the right type of survey questions? So the goal of the survey is really to get the general temperature of satisfaction through a series of 36 questions. This is not meant to create a list of things for us to fix. However, it does help us identify a general tone or attitude that we may need to address. Leadership is in the process now of reviewing specific comments, and then divisional leads will be reviewing these survey results by department. So for example, Jim Wagner, Operations Director, he received these survey results for our operations department. We assign people to their department to ensure that we have kind of real healthy, an accurate grouping by department. So a little information on the slide. We have traditionally done this by paper. This was 100% done electronic. It's the first time that we have done it as 100% electronic. And then we continue to use the scale of strongly agree to strongly disagree. Sorry, I'm going to try and I have notes on one screen. 71 of our 80 employees responded. So we feel like that was a huge sign of the success in this survey, because remember, it's the first time we've done it electronically. About 50% of our staff do not sit in front of computers. They don't check their email, to be quite honest. They're not using technology on a regular and recurring basis. So for us to get this high of response on an electronic survey, we think is great. 75% of those who participated belong to our operations division. That is reflective of how many of our employees work in our operations division. 15% in admin and planning, and 10% in our fleet division. 58% of staff responding have less than 5 years of longevity with Mountain Line. I thought that was interesting. We do have a fair amount of staff that have been here longer than that 5 year, but they belong, as people progress through our agency, they move into positions that do not participate in this survey. If you are a manager or leader, you do not participate in this survey. I'm going to quickly go through some of the information. If you are interested in the entire results, I would be happy to share that with you. I did not include every question or every report as a result. 80% of staff agree that they have the information and tools to do their jobs. That same 80% agrees that they are well informed about risk. Sorry. Okay. So 80% of staff surveyed agree they have information and tools to do their jobs. And that same 80% agrees that they feel well informed about the risk associated with their position. And that same 80% agrees responsibilities have been clearly defined for them. And that they see connection of their work to the goals, priorities, and mission. So the above areas that I just covered, the last 3 slides, really tie to our strategic plan and objective of creating employee engagement materials focused on the contribution of transit and specifically transit operators and the goal and their connection to the goals of our community. 67% of those surveyed agree that training has been consistent. I would just tell you, I think we can do better. We need to look at ongoing and refresher training as a priority for Mountain Line in 2023. That's been a real challenge when we don't have enough staff to even operate the vehicles to pull people out into refresher training. But this is a renewed commitment for this summer. Now that we are fully staffed with 50 to 50 needed operators, we will be able to address this concern about training being consistent and ongoing. 75% of our staff agree that they are encouraged to learn from mistakes and to continue growing in their position. 70% agree they have opportunities for professional development. Progress related to our training programs and development plans are both specific objectives of the strategic plan to ensure we continue to meet this need. We'll continue focusing on making sure staff understand those opportunities available to them. The next area really focuses on, this is an area where I say we have the most impact in the decisions we make as leaders and managers. 78% of our team agree that they have access. They can talk to their manager about expectation and performance goals. But only 55% of staff agree that they receive consistent and objective performance evaluations. This is definitely an area we have identified for improvement. We are significantly behind in performance evaluations. We've been focused on daily feedback, coaching, and mentoring, but we need to get caught up with those annual evaluations that go on record, that we get a chance to review with staff, that give them that, how did I do in the last year? Staff want that feedback and we need to give it to them. So this is something we're working on catching up right now and then figuring out how we remain committed to that. I will say some of the vacancies in our middle management positions, our operations manager went vacant a year ago, our coordinators 6 months ago. That has allowed that gap to grow on getting those evaluations complete. 86% agree that they have access to their manager. So we may be behind in those evaluations, but staff feel they have access to their manager when needed. And I have to say, in a time where we're short-staffed and have had a large void to fill in frontline support, I'm very proud of our team, and I give them a lot of credit for the response to this particular question. 82% agree that they're treated fairly. And 70% agree that communication is straightforward and consistent. 68% would say their manager is responsive to ideas, requests, and suggestions. This was interesting to me as a contrast to the last 3 questions. However, the comments that we received really made it clear that we don't have in-person staff meetings. So people don't feel like they have that opportunity for feedback to be heard and to be received. And so that will be another area that we look at. How do we get back to that? How do we get back to those in-person meetings for our staff so that they do feel like their feedback and ideas are appreciated and heard? Interestingly, only 42% of employees felt recognized and respected Again, we believe this goes back to those in-person meetings where staff have that interaction, that dialogue. We do focus on daily feedback. I've asked our team, how often is the feedback only negative and never positive? And so we're evaluating to ensure that we are balancing that approach. Oh, hey, by the way, thanks for showing up on time, but don't forget your name badge versus you didn't bring your name badge today. How do we change that conversation so that they're respected, so that they're recognized? And it encourages ideas and suggestions. 54% believe that we take their feedback seriously, probably echoing the prior. So again, if we're not recognizing them for feedback and suggestions, they also don't feel taken seriously. Ending on a good note, 90% of our staff believe their job performance is important to the success of Mountain Line. I would like to see that number 100%. I don't think that we can be successful without any of our team members. And 73% agree that staff is supportive and respectful of each other. And we saw this throughout the comments. And in fact, our contractor remarked on it, and I'm going to share his remark. 73% enjoy the culture and environment at Mountain Line. That's something we spend a lot of time focused on. So if they enjoy the culture and environment, how are you missing the mark with feedback and suggestions? So those are the dots that we still need to connect. And I just want to say while we're on this, that I believe as a leader, we have to be aware of emerging concerns, and we need to know when morale is at risk. But I've encouraged all of our leadership to focus time, shine lights on positive things that are happening in our workplace. So you have the 80-20 of 80% of your employees that are coming to work on a regular basis and they're responsible and they're doing their job, and you have 20% that are complaining they don't like the carpet cleaner smell or whatever it is. And I don't want us spending all of our time on the 20% that you will never completely make happy at work. So I want us paying attention to negative feedback, especially if it's an emerging concern we need to pay attention to. But I think the culture of Mountain Line is about the positive work environment that we have. And I encourage our leadership to continue focusing on that as well. "74% of our staff would recommend Mountain Line. To me, that is a huge sign of the overall satisfaction of our employees here at work. So yes, we have some things to work on. But this is the comment from our contractor that stood out for me. Employees appreciate Mountain Line's work culture and environment, which they cite as a main reason for continued employment. It's also seen as one of the best elements of working for Mountain Line in survey questions and the open write-in sections." He went on to say the most resounding theme from the survey from staff is that the best part of coming to work is the culture and environment and their fellow employees. So I want us as an agency to continue focusing on all of those positive things, but I haven't overlooked the feedback and the areas that we need to work on. And so these are the opportunities that we've identified as areas that we can improve satisfaction. So that's that reoccurring and on-the-job training program that we will be really refocusing on this summer, getting performance reviews caught up, and then finding a mechanism to ensure we stay on time with those, and working to identify how does recognition and ideas and suggestions resonate for staff, and that reintroduction of in-person meetings. And that's everything that I have on the survey, but I'd be happy to go back, go over anything, answer any questions. And like I said, if you would like to see the report in its entirety, I'm happy to share that as well.
Thank you, Heather. I see that Director Mayer has his hand up. Do you want to ask the first question, Director Mayer?
Yes, thank you. So, I appreciate the work that's been done in, evaluating the employee satisfaction and, acknowledging that really we're only as strong as of an agency as, our people.
Right.
So, and I appreciate sort of the responsiveness, and you're outlining some of the action that you're looking to take in response to some of these survey results. But, also, I wanted to take a look. I know that sometimes, we're overly critical of what we're doing. You know, acknowledging that we want to always be progressive and making sure that our people are happy. But back to the slide that you had on recognition and respect. You can see the response to that question. Yeah, so that one, I noticed that it's a very high percentage of people who neither agree nor disagree. And so, like, sometimes when we see the results of these questions, it's really in how the question is interpreted by the person who's answering it.
Yep.
And not that, you know, when I take a look at this question, if I was the employee, I focus on the part where it says, when I bring ideas or make suggestions.
Mhm.
And maybe I'm an employee who doesn't really feel like I need to bring ideas or make suggestions. And so, and I think that might be playing into, you know, why there's such a high percentage of neither agree nor disagree. Not that they, in general, on the general day-to-day basis, that they don't feel recognized or respected. It's just that they're not bringing ideas and they don't feel they need to. So I would caution you to not be overly critical of the current practices, but still acknowledging that we always want to do better. So that's really
Thank you. I appreciate that feedback. Thank you.
Director Mayer, thank you for pointing that out. Other directors, questions? Heather, I'd just like to compliment you and your team for the work that you're doing at Mountain Lion. Clearly, the survey indicates a quality, welcoming, supportive work environment for all of your staff. And I appreciate the fact that you shared areas where you've identified a need for focus and growth and whatnot. But I'd also like to just sort of piggyback on Director Mayer's comments and also recognize that you know, sometimes the way you improve is you continue to do what you're really good at already, and you further develop that even more. So I also think that the work that you're doing that is demonstrating success in many of the areas that the survey pointed out, I would hope that we are also looking at continuing that work and engaging staff in a way that they're able to continue to feel that way moving forward.
Thank you for that.
I know that we have had a very busy agenda this afternoon today, and want to make sure that we get through what we have left on our agenda. And so we'll move forward with progress reports. Heather.
Great. So under progress reports, if you ever have questions, it's just a general reminder on any item under progress reports, you would like us to put them on the agenda in the future. We really provide this as an FYI because we don't feel like there's much that we can engage you in discussion on, but we are always happy to readdress questions or bring those items to light. So just as a reminder, anytime anything under progress reports can be agendized by you, the board. So I'm going to skip right over delegation of authority, not because there isn't good stuff in there, but I want to focus on a couple of current event items and share those with you. We're going to start with something we've all seen lately, snow. So I'm showing you some photos here to illustrate how challenging snow can be. But ultimately, my goal in sharing these is to express our gratitude for our fleet and facilities team. So our staff generally start around 3 a.m. On snow days, sometimes earlier than that. I know they participate in phone calls. We make decisions about service about 4:30 in the morning. So most of our team who's in leadership positions is engaged by 4:30 a.m. on any day there's snow. But our fleet and facilities teams have already been at work. So they have to clean out our facility here so staff can report to work and so that we can actually get buses out of the parking lot. And then we have the two connection centers that have to be maintained by us, one downtown and one at the mall. And the one at downtown, of course, we're trying to clear not just within the parking lot where the buses park, but on the streets where the buses park. And so those come with their own innate challenges. And then we have 164 bus stops that require us to touch every last one of them throughout the community. Our team does a really great job. And I will tell you that during the last 2 storms, we have also been 2 positions short. So we have only had a couple of our normal staff members, a couple of our temp staffs. We were averaging 65 hours per week for some of those staff just to deal with snow and snow clearance. So some of the challenges that we have that I give them credit for 100%, I call them small but mighty. They're an amazing team and I appreciate them. You can see on the left-hand side of the screen an image. I hope you can see the person standing in the street waiting for the bus because the right-hand turn lane was not plowed. There was a berm between our bus stop, which is on the sidewalk, and where the passenger actually boards the bus. This is just one example of some challenges. Our team comes in and cleans that up as best they can. On the right-hand side, this is an example of snow that gets plowed by either a property owner or streets. No blame, I'm not here to say anybody did a bad job. I'm here to show you some of the challenges that we have. Our team now has to clear out that. I don't know if you can see the bus stop just beyond those berms. Our bus cannot safely approach that bus stop. We actually have 6 buses that were damaged by berms this year. So that will require work on our team part now that is body work, wrap work, paint work, because we've scraped, hit, bumped the berms in different locations. And I just wanted to show you, again, some of the challenges that they're faced with. One other quick slide. The slide on the left is a bus shelter after a plow has come by. This is a common condition. So remember, we have 164 bus stops to take care of, and sometimes we no more than get them done. We have to come back around and do them again because now the plows have come in and done what they need to do to clean bike paths and sidewalks and clear roadways. But it does result in us revisiting some of our stops 3, 4, or 5 times during a single storm. This year, we've lost 4 panels in our bus stops because of plows throwing snow into the shelters and shattering actually plexiglass, as well as 1 glass front that was destroyed, we think, by a snow blower. So just again, challenges that our team face in the field. We will be meeting with hopefully city public works to talk about how do we partner better. And then lastly, I know our drivers face all kinds of challenges out there when they're in snowy conditions. What we don't expect is the image that you see on the right-hand side, which is Cheshire 4 days after a snowstorm. So the buses had a difficult time making the turn just behind them here. And this bus actually got stuck in the snow on the road 4 days after the storm, and our fleet team had to go and rescue them. So again, our small but mighty team, they do everything when it comes to snow. And again, not here to complain or point fingers, but to really recognize what kind of effort it is. We all can look at our own driveways and know how much shoveling snow is for each of us a challenge. But our little team of 4 people on a reoccurring basis is really dealing with snow across the community, not just at the shelters, but in the roadways, in the access ways, et cetera. So it's really meant to say thank you to our fleet and facilities team, and I appreciate you allowing me to show you a few pictures. Anniversaries. So here on the screen are a number of anniversaries for our staff. Lynn Hill has served with us for 13 years as human resources specialist. Unfortunately, Lynn did leave her job earlier this month for medical reasons, but we always have appreciated the resource she was to our team members in the HR world, did a lot of benefit enrollment, new employee orientation, and really has set us up for success going forward. Jackie Lenners is our marketing communications director. All of you are probably very familiar with her. Been here now 11 years, and honestly, I don't know what I would do without her. She writes everything that I say to you, everything, and it's fabulous. I didn't know I spoke poorly until Jackie started writing for me. Busy is here in the room today, 4 years celebrating with Mountain Line. 5-year plan, huge success in the work for the key performance indicators is going to serve us for many years to come. Operator Herman Ramirez, 8 years, and Jaime at 16. Jaime is a cross-trained driver. He drives on both sides. So he drives our buses and he drives our paratransit vehicles. Our paratransit customers love Jaime. They will call and ask to be put on Jaime's vehicle. He is absolutely fabulous. Dave Doss at the bottom, 2 years with us. He was recently promoted to our assistant operations manager. He's really been key in moving us along with new scheduling software, new policies and procedures, and supporting our team members. He will be carrying a large bulk of the load to get these performance evaluations caught up. Ruben has been with us for 2 years now, as has Matt Kimmons. And then I cannot forget to mention Bernice Tooley. Bernice interviewed me when I started here 22 years ago. So Bernice continues to be a force within our agency. She mainly has worked in our paratransit side. She's done operator duties. She has done supervisor duties. She has been a coordinator and a leader, and just an all around, whatever you need, Bernice can do it. And she can tell you every customer, where they live, how many children they have, how many dogs, how many cats. And she is tremendous. And I have learned so much from her. And I'm so grateful that she is still with our agency as a leader. With that, I will just share a couple quick comments. I know we're coming up on time. If you haven't read the current events, I encourage you to do so. There are some news bits in there that you may be interested in. A reminder, in case you haven't heard the reminder today, tomorrow is our electric bus launch. And we welcome you all in our facility at 11:30. We do have some guests that will be here to present, and I'm excited to have them here. And then a couple other things, our IT team sharing kudos. They have achieved a grant for around $13,000 towards meeting some cybersecurity concerns, and I congratulate them, both improving our IT software, but also bringing in grant to ensure our cost savings there. ADOT confirmed award of funding that is in the delegation of authority report, but I want to congratulate our team because we couldn't get these grants without them writing the applications, and we were funded in almost nearly 100% of our request. We probably have the strangest award ever. I've shared this in DC recently as well. They give us 4.5 buses, not 5, 4.5 buses. And I will tell you, when you're in DC telling people you need money for 2.5 buses, it's a very memorable conversation. So it may have been the best award they ever gave us. The other portion of that award will really allow us to look at our facility here and how we improve our maintenance facilities. Our fleet staff has been asking for years when they were going to be able to work on our buses indoors, and we're glad to finish up that work. That allows us to finalize the design, and then we will move on to asking for construction money. And I know Estella is busy with that grant application now. I wanted to provide an update. The very last bullet under finance, compliance, and procurement says we are pursuing state funding through the Arizona Smart Fund. We are not. We have received feedback from ADOT, who is managing that process, that we as a transit agency can only pursue those funds if the city or the county supports our application. That puts us in direct competition with any application that the city and or county may be making. So we believe, Transit, Mountain Line believes, that ADOT is interpreting the language incorrectly. So we are going to spend our time talking at the state about what the state appropriation language said, where it specifically called out transit agencies versus what ADOT is recognizing in their eligibility standards. So we hope to spend our time wisely this year correcting that, because we do not want to be in a position of asking either our partners at the city or the county to prioritize our asks for transit support over their own ask. And I know the city had a flood ask this year as just one example. And so that was, one last update. Transit Employee Appreciation Day was last week. We celebrated our team members. We gave everybody survival backpacks, which have the little goodies they might need to get throughout their workday. There was a lot of news on social media. We encouraged our riders to participate, but ultimately we appreciate our employees and we want them to know that. So thank you to all of you who participated in either sharing our messages or commenting, and for being here and supporting us in this way. And that is everything I have for current events.
Thank you, Heather. Directors, earlier today, Heather and I met to kind of go over the agenda before our meeting began, and we were talking about the snow and the impact that's had on transit. And I don't know about you all, but as a member of this board, I pay a lot of extra attention when I'm out and about, when I see a Mountain Line bus and going from route to route. and this snow season has been extremely challenging for so many people, but probably no other group of folks than our drivers from with our fleets and the snow removals work that has to go into helping our buses function and run and serve the community. And I just want to just applaud everybody's effort in making the best of the effort they could to keeping things operational and working so hard when so much snow has fallen in such a short period of time. That's a tough job, and our riders as well, standing in knee-deep snow, and there's no sidewalk to walk on, and maybe putting themselves in harm's way by standing out in the street because there's nowhere else to be. So I just want to make an extra effort to acknowledge that hard work that has gone into getting us through the winter. And I hope that we don't see much more snow as we move into the spring. Any other comments from the board before we adjourn this morning? Hearing none, I think our next board meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, April 19th at 10 a.m. Again, it'll be a hybrid meeting as we've had in the past. And Heather has up on the board, looks like agenda items that I believe will be in the next meeting. And I think, isn't there a joint meeting coming up too, like in May, Heather, with the TAC, like a retreat? I think it's May 17th, if I remember.
Rhonda is shaking her head, yes.
I don't know, is that on our, as Rhonda sent out invites, is that on our schedules?
It should be on your calendar.
Okay, great. All right, with that said, I think we can adjourn for today.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good day out there. Thank you.